Welcome aboard the Strange Express. My name is Dr. Scherzo Stantio. Today we have a story that we call the Virginia Creeper Girl. So take a seat. We'll be on our way in just a moment, as I believe I just heard the signal from the engineer that we're all clear and about to leave the station. Or, as the devil said when the Strange Express ran over his tail, it won't be long now. My name is Ira Reed. This is a story about something that happened to me a few years ago. It was a dark time in my life, and I was in a place in my life that I am now convinced that one should never go. I was in the midst of a pity party, thrown by myself and for myself. If you should ever go there, stop and take a good look around. I'm sure that you'll quickly see that there are others, probably not too far from you, who are much worse off than you are. As I mentioned, I was in a dark period in my life. I was on my own, without a job, with no real prospects. I was behind on many of my bills, and as a result, I'd been evicted from my apartment. Since both of my parents had passed away, I anticipated my life as a homeless person when one of my uncles reached out to me in a letter and offered to let me stay at his fishing cabin until I was able to get back on my feet again. I'm not really sure how he heard of my situation, as I'd not advertised it to anyone, especially family members, as I was ashamed of what I saw to be my many failures. Nevertheless, I was grateful to have a roof over my head. The cabin was at the end of a dirt road that was off a clay road, and the clay road led to a paved county road that you travel in either direction to small towns that you'd really have to look for if you were looking for them on a map. My uncle usually spent 2 or 3 weeks at the cabin per year, mainly for relaxation and to get some fishing in. It's a small cabin, but it's sufficient for one person. I moved in with all my worldly possessions, all 4 banana boxes, mostly clothes. The cabin had all the comforts of home, including an internet connection. Since I did not want to be a burden to my uncle any longer than I had to, I set to trying to find a new job online as soon as I'd gotten settled in. After 2 weeks of filling out dozens of applications and uploading resumes and cover letters, which had netted me only 2 responses, both being polite, "Your background and your experience do not meet our needs at this time" type answers, I began to get truly depressed. I tried to continue with my job search, but I couldn't concentrate. I was feeling pretty much depressed as I possibly could, and alcohol addiction had landed me in my current situation, and while I'd been doing really well recently, a small relapse had caused me to lose my job. My addiction had already cost me just about everything else, and my mind was spiraling downward with depressing thoughts that I don't even want to talk about. I had to get away from the computer and get some fresh air to clear my head. I went outside and walked through the woods, down to the pond. There I saw the old wooden dock that extended out over the pond. The dock appeared to be well maintained, as I noticed some of the planks had been replaced. I walked out on the dock and took my shoes and socks off and sat down, and sunk my bare feet into the cool water. I sat there and reflected on where my life was and where it was going. After about 10 minutes, there was something telling me to get up and leave this place. It wasn't a voice, just a feeling. I really didn't want to leave the place, but the feeling was making me feel anxious. My body was saying stay in the warm sun with my feet in the cool water, while my mind was screaming that I needed to leave. The feeling kept getting stronger, though, so much so that I could feel my pulse quicken. It seemed that my fight or flight response had been triggered, but there was no obvious reason for it. Finally, I could bear it no more, so I pulled my feet out of the water and put my shoes on, stuffing my socks in my jacket pockets. I followed the trail back to the cabin, but I wasn't ready to go back inside yet, as that anxious feeling still had not subsided, so I went past the cabin and walked up the dirt road. There were woods on both sides of the dirt road filled with oak, pine, and hickory, and what appeared to be a few birch mixed in. What really made the woods look thick and dark were the massive Virginia creeper vines that covered many of these giant trees. Some of the vines had trunks as large as small trees, and if you were to cut them off at the ground level, I suspect you'd have a very good Tarzan swing. I continued along the dirt road until I came to the clay road. I checked my pockets and confirmed I had some change. I thought I'd seen a small country store/gas station somewhere along the clay road, so I thought I might stop in and get something cold to drink. I walked over a mile down the road and never saw a vehicle or a house along the road, much less a store. I was about to turn around and go back when I got a whiff of perfume. I looked around, but I did not see where the fragrance could be coming from. I scanned the tree line to see if I could see someone in the woods, but if anyone was there, I didn't see them. There appeared to be a break in the tree line just ahead, so I decided to go that much further. As I continued to walk down the road, I heard the sound of someone running toward me from the woods. It was a girl. She looked like she was in her early teens. The really odd thing was that she appeared to be dressed in a full riding regalia. You know, with a jacket, knee-high leather boots, and a riding hat. I smiled as I thought all she was missing was a riding crop. The smile fled my face, though, when I realized that the girl was clearly upset and was in tears. She came up to me and said, "Please, come with me. My mother's trapped under a tractor and I think she may be hurt." Tears were streaming down her freckled face. I started to reach for my phone, but I did not have it, since it seemed like so much extra weight since the service had been disconnected. It seems the provider likes to be compensated for their service. I then asked the girl, "Where is she?" "She's by the barn over at our house," she said, pointing in the direction of the break in the tree line that I had been traveling toward. I said, "Well then, let's go." We both took off running in the direction that she indicated. She took the lead and I followed her. Within the break in the tree line, there was an old ranch-style house and an old red barn behind it. The girl pointed at the barn and said, "She's over there. Please help her." I asked, "Do you have a phone?" The girl answered, "I don't have a phone. My mother does, but I don't know where it's at." "Well, try to find it," I said, thinking it must surely be nearby. "We may need to call for an ambulance," I said. The girl went off to look for a phone, I presume, and I ran over to the overturned tractor to assess the situation. I saw the woman lying beneath the tipped-over tractor. Her eyes were closed, but I could hear her breathing. Suddenly her eyes opened and she exclaimed, "Oh, mister, you're an answer to prayer." Surprised by the tone of her greeting, I asked her, "Do you have any broken bones? Are you bleeding?" "No," she said, "I don't think anything is broken, and as far as I can tell, I'm not bleeding. I can't feel my feet, though." The smell of gasoline was very strong, and the gas tank was leaking on her legs. It appeared that she'd been trying to drive the tractor up onto a small flatbed truck using some 2x10 boards as a ramp, when one of the boards either slipped off or flipped, and the tractor fell and landed on top of her. It was not a full-size tractor, but it was not a lawn tractor either. How she escaped getting severely injured or killed, I don't know. The tractor had landed on her, pinning her legs, and the front wheels had turned just the right manner to keep the full weight of the tractor from crushing her. "Can you get me out of here?" she asked. "I'll try," I answered, as I looked for something that I could use to give me the leverage that I needed to lift the tractor so that she could get out from underneath it. I was thinking about using the ramp boards when she apparently anticipated my thoughts. "If you go in the barn and go to the back corner, there's a cupboard. Inside the cupboard, there's a box with a floor jack in it." I went and retrieved the floor jack and set it up by putting one of the ramp boards under it so the jack would not sink into the dirt as it lifted the weight of the tractor. Once I was able to get the tractor lifted enough, I pushed the other board under the tractor as a backup in case the jack slipped off, as there was no real place that I could put the jack where it felt real stable. Once I jacked the tractor up and wedged the board in, I went over to where the woman was and asked her if she wanted to see if she could get out yet. She said that her legs were numb, and so I gently assisted her in getting out from under the tractor. She was able to stand up and asked me to assist her in going inside her house, as she wanted to get the gasoline-soaked clothes off and get a shower. She asked me to wait for her in the living room, and I agreed to do so. While I was waiting for her to get back, I noticed the fireplace was lined with trophies from various horse shows, and in the center of the collection there was a large mahogany framed photo of the girl that had originally summoned me to help her mother. Her hair in the photo was just a bit darker, but otherwise she appeared to be the same. She was standing in front of a horse, and appeared to be wearing the same riding outfit that she had been wearing today, but in the photo she was holding a riding crop. As I scanned the room, I noticed multiple photos of the family, many of them featuring horses. As I looked at the photos, I began to wonder where the daughter had wandered off to. I dismissed the thought, though, as the emergency had passed, and I was sure she'd find her way back soon. After a few minutes, the mother came back into the room, and I asked her if she was feeling all right, or should we call for a doctor. She said she was fine, but for a while she thought she was going to die under that tractor. She did not have any neighbors that were near, and she had left her phone sitting on the seat of her flatbed truck. She added, "I thank God that you came along when you did. I don't know why you're wandering around here out in the middle of nowhere, but I'm truly thankful that you were." I explained that I was recently unemployed and I was staying at my uncle's fishing cabin that was up the road a couple of miles. And I was getting cabin fever, so I was out getting some fresh air. She said that she believed that God had put me in the right place at the right time. I agreed that that does happen. We then laughed about the fact that we didn't even know each other's names, so we introduced ourselves. I was still wondering where the daughter had disappeared to. I then said something. It was not the words that I had in mind, but in perspective, I'm glad that the question I had in mind was never vocalized. I said to her, looking around at the photos and the trophies in the room, "Your daughter must be quite the equestrian." Her answer sent me into shock. She responded, "She was. She's gone now, though. Her father, and the horse." "I apologize," I said. "I didn't realize. I was truly at a loss of words. I thought I must be missing something here. Who did I see today?" She continued, "That's okay. You couldn't have known. They were on the road traveling to one of the many shows that she went to. I often went with them, but I wasn't there that time as we'd had a bit of a family blow-up. Just before they left, I had said that I felt Tanya ought to cut back on attending so many shows, as it seemed to be affecting her grades. Of course, Tanya didn't agree to this, and her father always took her side. Anyway, they were on the road, and we had not spoken since they had left. There was that terrible accident, and all three died. I apologized again for bringing up such a painful subject. It's been a few years now, but I sometimes wonder if I did the right thing, as I didn't tell her about seeing the ghost of her daughter, if that was indeed what it was. I'm not sure myself. At the time, I didn't think it would benefit her in any way if I told her about an incident that I really couldn't explain. And up until now, I've never told anyone else about it. She was a very nice lady and was grateful for my rescuing her. And as it turns out, she had some local contacts and was able to help me find employment fairly quickly. I count myself fortunate. I still have my job and I've been able to overcome my addiction. Still, from time to time, I wonder what I encountered that day. Maybe someday I'll know. Maybe. Well now, it looks like we're coming to the end of the line for today. I'm afraid that today's story was another one that I really couldn't get into. I'd like to find out more about that horse, though. You see, I have a friend that's a horse, and she's a real party animal, staying up all night long. Yeah, she's a real nightmare, and I like nightmares. Sorry about that. I just have an unbridled passion for puns. Some food for thought. What do you think Ira saw? A ghost? An angel? Stir up some conversation in the comments and let me know what you think. Now, Ira's doing well these days. He seems to be financially stable now, but that job has him saddled with more responsibility. Ah, the conductor's just stepped in and indicated that I should hoof it. He's pointing toward the open door. No, I believe I'll wait for the train to stop first. Thanks again for joining me. Perhaps we'll meet again soon. In the meantime, happy rails to you.